So in my Instagram profile, I write that I unfollow anyone who raves about Morphe brushes, and I always get a lot of questions about that. I figured I shall just do a video review of all my brushes to explain my stance on Morphe and maybe give suggestions of better brushes out there. If you want a more thorough review on Morphe's business model, I really recommend Stephanie Nicole's video, which I'll link below. Anyway, let's talk about brushes. I'm a big believer that brushes are like wine. So yes, there's a huge difference between the $2 variety and, a more expensive version. But I do believe that after a certain price range, the difference in quality is really, really slight. So unless you're a wine connoisseur, doesn't really matter. Sure, sometimes you may want to buy a $300 bottle of wine for a specific reason, but a lot of times a $20 bottle will do. Here's how I'll rank my brushes, and I'll explain my decision soon. One of the arguments I've gotten in defense of Morphe is that they're a great starter brush for people who are just getting into makeup. And yes, I agree, they're very, very cheap. The cheapest brush you can find is as low as $1.99, and even the most expensive brush is only $22.99. So yeah, I agree, they're super cheap. But the thing is, I bought a bunch of brushes for Morphe and only 30% are usable. The rest I had to trash. And I gave some to my friend as a present, and he washed them when they were brand new, and this is what happened. Yeah, they stained his hand blue, and I felt really, really bad about that. You know what's a better starter brush? Aliexpress brushes. These are the brushes I own, and out of all of this, these are the Aliexpress brushes. Yeah, there's a lot of them. Majority of my collection is made up of Aliexpress brushes. My starter brush kit, I got 32 brushes for just $13, including shipping. Yeah, sure, I tossed about a third of them, but when you average it out, it's only about 70 cents per brush, so it's still a great value for money and much cheaper than Morphe. For anyone getting started in makeup, this is what I recommend. Just buy a whole set from Aliexpress. It's a great way to figure out what brushes you don't need. It's like this brush here. I mean, it's really way too big for my face. I barely ever use it. And what brushes you frequently use and may want to invest in more expensive brands for. It's also a great way to figure out the gaps in your collection and try to find specific brushes from other brands. Another thing that's amazing about Aliexpress, some of the brushes are so good that I haven't gotten replacements for them even though I use them daily. They're really, really great. And my favorite eyeliner brushes ever, I got 4 of them as part of a 20-piece nail art set that cost me $6 including shipping. That's really freaking amazing. Now, the thing about Aliexpress is that their brushes range so much in quality. You go from Morphe level of crappiness to Sigma level of awesomeness. So it's all really a gamble, and I really don't know how to teach you to figure out which brushes are amazing because even I don't know. It's all just a matter of luck. So I wish I know how to get only the good brushes. If I discount all the crappy brushes and only focus on the good brushes I got, I will honestly rank them somewhere between Reinedoll and Sigma. But because the crappy brushes are really, really crappy, so I'm ranking them lower. Oh, if you're going to go to Aliexpress route, one thing I have to warn you is that you need to really read all the reviews carefully. I noticed that sometimes the site just leaves a 5-star review for me automatically if I don't submit a review in time. So I will usually just ignore all the 5-star reviews, especially if they come with no comments or just a generic comment like excellent, because they could be generated by the site. I will really focus on every negative review because I think they're more helpful. If you see a single negative review that you think is valid, I suggest just moving on to a different store because they all sell identical things anyway. Going back to the wine analogy, sometimes a $2 box wine can be an award-winning wine and you shouldn't dismiss them completely. But, they're often also really crappy and, well, if you do get a crappy $2 box wine, I wouldn't get too upset about it. And if they do turn out to be crap, you can still get drunk off them if that's your objective, but it's just a less pleasant experience. Moving on to slightly better brushes, BareMinerals. I got my brushes from BareMinerals as part of sets in mid-2000s. And I threw out most of them because a lot of them are crap. The only two I still have is this angled brush here and this concealer brush here. But I personally find that it's really hard to scrub concealer brushes, and this angled brush, it's not the best, but it's not absolute crap. Not a great tagline for a brand. Anyway, they still didn't stain my hands blue when I tried washing them, even though some did rain bristles down my face. So I'm still ranking them higher than Morphe. So next, Lit Cosmetics. They're more known for their glitter and not exactly a brush brand, but in case you're wondering whether you should buy their brushes since you're already getting their glitter, I thought I might as well review them. I got 2 brushes from a set, and one of them lost its shape after 2 uses and 1 wash, so I wouldn't recommend them. This one is good though, so I'm still ranking them above BareMinerals. Still, if you're looking for a good glitter brush, again, my favorite glitter brushes are from the Aliexpress nail art set, so yeah. And I got 22 for $6. Now, my mediocre Aliexpress brushes are about the same quality as Masami Shouko and Sephora brushes. The pros of Masami Shouko and Sephora is obviously that you can go in store and feel the brushes, so it's less of a gamble than buying from Aliexpress. If you're looking for a very specific brush, I wouldn't go with Aliexpress because you'll just end up with a lot of heartache. I've ended up with so many brushes that don't look like the picture, so I wouldn't recommend it. So yeah, these 2 brands are awesome for filling up gaps in your collection. But for Sephora, I have to admit that I started out with 4 brushes and now I have none. I did buy them in mid-2000s and I heard that the quality nowadays has improved. I did go to Sephora, do a field test of the brushes, and it looks like now they're about the same level as Masami Shouko, but I personally haven't bought any since I threw mine out in mid-2000s. And now that I'm back in Indonesia, I way prefer Masami Shouko just because it's the same quality, just way cheaper. Masami Shouko brushes range from about $7 to $25. They're really cheap. It's a rough conversion from the rupiah prices, which is 78.900 rupiah sampai 248.900 rupiah. Gak usah bahasa Indonesia juga. Meanwhile, Sephora brushes range from about $10 to $38. So now that I'm back in Indonesia, I way prefer Masami Shouko brushes. And yeah, both of these brushes, I encountered scratchy brushes, and I wouldn't say they're great, but you know, if you're on a budget and looking to fill up gaps in your collection, maybe you'd want to take a look at these brushes. Now, let's start with the brushes I actually like. When I first got to makeup when I was 16, Body Shop and makeup store brushes are the first few brushes I bought. Well, I'm 27 now and I still have some of these brushes, so yeah, they really last. Let's start with makeup store. This foundation brush has been with me since I'm 16. That's pretty impressive, but the reason I'm still kind of meh about this is just because I remember when I was 16, you know, I still preferred my Body Shop brushes over my makeup store brushes, and I eventually lost my makeup store eyeshadow brushes when I was moving around in college. I also bought this brush last year and it's already losing its shape in less than half a year, so I'm not that impressed. So at about $20 to $50, I think that these brushes are expensive for the quality, and there are brushes of way better quality for way cheaper. Another gripe I have about these brushes is that you can't find the prices anywhere online, so I had to go to the physical store and actually ask the sales lady how much each brush was, because even in a physical store they don't put the prices on the brushes. So yeah, I asked this poor lady for all the prices and walked out without buying anything. I'm pretty sure I ruined her day. I'm really sorry, whoever you are. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Moving on to Body Shop brushes. They feel amazing. They're really soft yet dense. This kabuki brush, every time I use it on my friend's face, they just tell me it feels like they're in a spa. It really feels amazing. This kabuki brush is my favorite kabuki brush ever. I've had it for 4 years and it's still going on strong, hasn't lost its shape. And you know, back then when I got this, I didn't know anything about brush care, so it's really rough with it, but hey, it's still around. Also, this eyeshadow brush It's been with me since I was 16. Yeah, sure, it's kind of losing its shape now, but I'm keeping it for sentimental reasons. And I mean, I still use it daily. You know what's really impressive? When I was 17, I went to Body Shop to buy a spare, and look, it's still unopened. Yeah, these brushes are amazing. The cons about these brushes is that there's a very limited range, and most of the brushes are too big for my smaller Asian eyes. Also, well, their denseness can be a good or a bad thing. All their brushes are really dense, and their density is why I love their kabuki brushes so much and hate their blush brush. Their blush brush is just way too dense, so it ends up lifting too much product off my face, and it also applies way too much blush on in this really pigmented streaks. As for their price range, there seems to be variations across countries, but in general, they're about $15 to $40 USD. Again, they're kind of pricey now that I've discovered cheaper but better brands. So personally for me, I will only repurchase their kabuki brushes. Speaking of cheaper brands with similar qualities, my makeup brush set. So if you're on Instagram, I'm sure you've seen these ads pop up everywhere, you know, advertising these oval brushes. Full disclosure, I got my set for free, but before you yell, corporate shill! Let me explain my stance on these brushes. Okay, so yes, I love how soft and dense they are. When I was taking out all my brushes, my husband kept rubbing them all over his face, so I guess he really likes them. I do like them, and the only reason they're not in the amazing category is because I noticed that there's a few loose bristles. I did give them a good tug, but they didn't come off, so I think they're glued on rather than loose. I definitely still need to figure out what to use these oval brushes for. I personally think oval brushes are a bit gimmicky. I mean, I love them for buffing my foundation in, but you know, the smaller brushes, I think my current eyeshadow eyeliner brushes work just fine. But if you really want oval brushes, then you know, you may want to take a look into these. Now, a set of 10 will cost you $25 to $40 depending on how fancy you want the handle to get. Well, supposedly they're on sale from $300, but I keep checking their website, they seem to be on perpetual sale, so. At an average of about $250 per brush, they're definitely a good deal, but here's a $199 oval brush I got from Aliexpress. It's almost identical to one of the brushes, and in fact I have to put a tape on my Aliexpress brush so I can tell them apart. I do notice that the Aliexpress brush is much more dense and it does feel softer, so I personally like my Aliexpress brushes more. And my Aliexpress oval brush is actually one of the brushes I consider Sigma level, so it's a really good buy for $199. The thing is, these brushes from my makeup brush set is pretty good too. So if you don't want to navigate the minefield that is Aliexpress, these brushes are still pretty cheap. They're just slightly more expensive, and you can take a look at the more expensive price as just a finder's fee. Now for the brushes that I think are great quality for great prices. First up, Reinedoll brushes. They're a local Indonesian brand, and their prices range from Rp85.000 sampai Rp155.000 or $8 to $15 rough conversion. They're definitely cheap, and as I mentioned before, the quality is great too. While I was taking out all my brushes for the picture, my husband was playing with these on his face, so I guess he really likes them too. They really feel amazing against your face. I swear that's a great way to test out the quality of a brush, see if my husband picks it up and starts playing it on his face. Anyway, full disclosure, I found out about these brushes when I was attending a beauty event, and her sister was there promoting the brushes. I ended up chatting with her sister and thought she's so cool. Yep, this is what happens when you take pictures with me. I put it on the internet and go full creepy on you. Just kidding, I had her permission to post these. But I'm not sponsored or paid to make these reviews. I did get a site discount from them. I think it's about 10-15%, definitely not more than 20% off, but that's it. Now, the downside of these brushes. First of all, their range is super limited. I'm talking about just 8 brushes. Another con about this brand is that the naming is kind of out of whack. For example, this is the pencil brush. I don't think it can be considered a pencil brush. It's way too large and fluffy. It's basically just like a slightly smaller version of the crease brush. So yeah, if you bought one of the crease brushes, I don't think you'll need the pencil brush. It just depends on what size you prefer. But other than my gripes about the naming and the range, I like these brushes and I think they're really, really cheap. Now on to another one of my favorite brands, Sigma. These brushes range from $14 to $36. Well, there were two brushes that were supposedly over $50 but discounted to $36 to $38. I don't know what's going on. I just discounted them out. They're a great value for quality. If you've seen my tutorials, you know that I think the E45 is life. I use it all the time. It's one of the brushes I consider pretty essential for my makeup routine. I love it. I did try buying a cheaper dupe from Masami Shouko and it's just not tapered or precise enough and it just doesn't feel as good. So I really like the E45, and even though these brushes come with a 2-year warranty, I think these brushes and I are gonna grow old together. So yeah, I really love Sigma. I think they're really great quality for a great price. It's definitely one of the brushes I will recommend to everyone. And they actually used to be my favorite brushes until Hakuhodo came into the picture. I know, I'm so sorry. You know, every time I see a review for an expensive product, I always think, oh my god, please tell me it sucks, I can save my money. But yeah, these brushes are worth the hype. They're just so soft and so precise, but they are expensive and definitely a splurge. The brushes I got these from Singapore, and the price range there was about $25 to over $200. So yeah, these are really expensive brushes. At the quality Sigma is at already, you know, I wouldn't recommend such a huge price jump just because of the 5 to 10% difference. It's like SPF, you know, once you reach SPF 60, a 5 to 10% increase doesn't make that much of a difference. Now, the reason I would recommend these is because these two brushes, they make doing more artistic eye art sort of look really amazing. I can get really precise lines. At the same time, they never tug or scratch my eyes. My mind was blown. I mean, I've never gotten this kind of stiff precision that's also really soft. Okay, with that in mind, do you really need these brushes? No. Okay, yes, with monolids, you really need to get very precise with your blending because our eyes are flat plane, and you know, sometimes makeup looks can look very 2D, so you do have to be very precise with blending, and these help a lot. At the same time, I got along just fine without these brushes for the past year. Honestly, if I didn't start using a macro lens that zooms in on every flaw, would I get these brushes? Probably not. And if I didn't start getting to doing all these weird, really precise, sort of more artistic eye looks that aren't wearable at all, I probably wouldn't get into these brushes either. And this highlighter brush, well, I love the feel of it in my face. Seriously, it feels like you're frolicking in the back hair of an angel. High five if you know that reference. Anyway, while I love the feel of this brush, honestly, I've been using my Aliexpress brushes to apply my highlighter and I get the same results. So yeah, do you want to spend over $100 on something that just feels better against your skin but will give you the same results as a $1 dupe? Well, it's your call. I mean, I don't really regret buying this because it does feel so good. But will I repurchase it? I don't think I will. So that's my brushes review. Thank you so much for watching the entire thing. I know it's very long. And to summarize my whole points, what I suggest for people who are just getting to makeup is to buy a brush set from Aliexpress for really cheap. And after you figured out the gaps in your collection and what brushes you want to invest a higher quality for, start filling those gaps up with Sigma or Reinedoll brushes. And when you're at the stage when you're really into makeup or just want to splurge on something that feels amazing against your face, that's when I will recommend investing in some Hakuhodo brushes. So thank you again for watching the whole thing. Bye! Talk about brushes. Hello? Yeah. Moving on to slightly better brushes. BareMinerals. Equally good too. And if you don't want to navigate the minefield that is $14 to 36 brushes. I did try buying a cheaper boot. Oh shit, it's still recording.